Hello everyone, my name is Goyal and today I'm going to share my thoughts on the topic NoSQL databases and data modeling techniques for a documentary oriented NoSQL database. First, for the introduction, the increase of data volume or big data during the last decade is attributed to a variety of data sources such as social media, GPS, data sensor data, surveillance data, text documents, etc. The term NoSQL has come to mean databases that are alternatives to the non-conventional RDBMS, that is, Oracle, MySQL, and others. Many of the lessons learned during the evolution of RDBMS are being ignored or discounted by the venture capitalists companies at the center of the NoSQL database movement. Many of the technical problems that have been resolved and automated by our DBMS database vendors are now the responsibility of NoSQL database administrators and application developers. What are NoSQL databases now? A new category of database technology called NoSQL database is able to support large volumes of data by providing faster data access and cost savings. Basically, the cost savings and improved performance of NoSQL databases result from a physical architecture that includes the use of inexpensive commodity servers that leverage distributed processing. Because RDBMS highly values data integrity, they use the ACID theorem for data consistency, which was presented in the early 1980s by Jim Gray. ACID is an acronym for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, and supports the concept of a transaction. So these are the main points for ACID. ACID. First, atomicity. It ensures that all tasks with a transaction are performed completely. And consistency, it ensures that a transaction must leave the database in a consistent state at the end of the transaction. And isolation, it ensures that transactions are isolated and do not interfere with other transactions. And durability ensures that once the transaction is complete, the data will persist permanently, even in the event of a system failure. In contrast, NoSQL databases use the CAP theorem, consistency, availability, and partition tolerance for data consistency, which was presented in 2000 by Eric Brewer at an ACM symposium. The CAP theorem states that of the three possible combinations of CAP, only two are available at a given point in time. In other words, no SQL databases can have partition tolerance in a distributed environment and consistency or partition tolerance and availability, but on all three, not all three factors at the same time, according to Abramova, Bernardino, and Furtado. CAP theorem has evolved into what is now called BASE, base, basically available soft state and eventual consistency. So basically available means that data will be available. However, the response from the database can be a failure to retrieve the data, or the data retrieved may be in an inconsistent state. For soft state, it means that the data can change over time as the database seeks consistency. Eventual consistency means that sooner or later the database will eventually become consistent. So now are the types of NoSQL databases. There are four types of NoSQL databases: document oriented, key value pairs, wide column or column family, and graph. IT organizations will use one or more of the NoSQL database types based upon the characteristics of the data that must be processed. So first of all, document oriented. As the name implies, stores related information in the form of a document in a third normal form data. Data is normalized into different entities with relationships to reduce redundancy and to avoid update anomalies. Within a document-oriented NoSQL database document, the data is denormalized, semi-structured, and stored hierarchically. Now, key value pairs. It stores information in form of matched pairs with only two columns permitted, the key or hashed key and the value. The values can be simple text or complex data types such as sets of data. Data must be retrieved via an exact match on the key. The advantage of this type of NoSQL database is that the new types of data about a book can easily be added to the database as a new key value point. Wide column or column family it has a format of data storage that is very similar to RDBMS. Although RDBMS tend to have simple data types and a predefined schema or structure, column-oriented NoSQL database provide much more flexibility. They can support complex data types, unstructured text, and graphics. For example, JPEG, GIF, and BMP, etc. Now we come to graph. It supports data that has an undefined number of network connections. This type of data supports map data, bus transportation links, and relationships found in social media. For example, traversing a graph to find the shortest distance between cities is a daunting task using a conventional RDBMS. However, a graph NoSQL database can facilitate this type of processing. Allegro, Neo4j, and Virtuoso are examples of graph databases. Now we come to data modeling design techniques for a MongoDB NoSQL database. MongoDB is an open source document-oriented NoSQL database that was initially developed in 2007 by a company called Tengen. Data modeling on the conceptual level or CDM and the logical data modeling LDM is very similar to what is done for RDBMS. Either normalized data models, 3D normal form, or dimensional models are acceptable modeling approaches. The major changes to the data modeling occur when the data model is transformed from the LDM to a physical data model. There are five heuristics that Hoberman suggests for declining whether deciding whether to embed or reference data that frequently from multiple queried from multiple entities at the same time can be embedded into one document. Entities that are considered dependent entities can be embedded into one entity. If there is one-to-one relationship between two entities, we embed one of the entities into the other entity. Entities that experience similar volatility at the same rate can be embedded together. Entities that are not key entities but have relationships with key entities can be referenced and not embedded. So we come to conclusion that NoSQL database are an important component of big data for storing and retrieving large amounts of data. RDBMS use the ACID theorem for data consistency, where NoSQL databases use BAC. BSC. RDBMS scale vertically and NoSQL databases scale both horizontally and vertically. Although NoSQL databases provide performance gains, some researchers are cautious and skeptical about data consistency. This paper describes the four types of NoSQL database: document oriented, key value pairs, column oriented, and graph. So now we come to bibliography, and thank you again for everyone for listening to me.